Welcome to Thomistic Womanhood. In today's video, we're going to continue the goodness series. These are all the qualities that men find attractive in women. Obviously, we want to be awesome women in our own right, not necessarily for a guy, but, it does help to know what you're dealing with and some ways to maximize your success. So we're going to talk today about something I'm calling feminine sympathy. And we talked a little bit in the last video about admiration and how, men want somebody who they can converse with and they can feel understood by and admired by. And this one's a little different. So this is not when he's telling you a story of him being a victory. This is him when he's telling you about a loss, when he failed at something, or it's not going well, or he thinks he might fail. Feminine sympathy, there is a way to give sympathy to a guy that is very different than the sympathy us women want. Normally, when we are upset about something, women give a very nurturing form of sympathy, like, oh, it's okay, but men don't like that. The kind of sympathy that they want and that's effective. Because how many times have you said something, to like a man in your life and you wanted him to feel better? Something bad was happening to him and you wanted him to feel better, but you said something that you thought was very kind and nurturing and he just it just deflated him, or he just was like, wow, thanks. It just totally didn't have the intended effect. This is what I'm talking about. Here's what to say so that he does feel better about it. And again, to know kind of how to address it, you have to understand the fundamental thing that upsets men. And what upsets men is feeling like a failure, feeling like they somehow don't measure up. And so that's why when men face a challenge in life, or maybe they've failed at something, it feels really awful because it's kind of like confirmation of their worst fear, like, oh, I'm not good enough, dang it, And so when you want to give sympathy to a man, you want to do it in a very feminine, gentle way. And it's not even like a feminine way, it's what I call an effective way, because men give this kind of sympathy to each other instinctively. So what I mean is, to get to the point, you want to express your belief in their ability. So saying things like, oh, you got this, or, if it's something where he's worried he might fail and it's failure isn't really imminent, it hasn't really happened yet, but he's facing a challenge. Saying things like, let's say he has to run a marathon the next day and he's a little worried like he might not be able to pull it off, you can just express belief in his ability, think back to all the things that make him qualified to do this. Well, honey, you've been training for this for a long time. Your body is, in shape for this. You're ready. You totally got this. Or, things in general. Maybe he's afraid he can't close a sales call. Well, you've got a great personality and you're very knowledgeable about the product. You can do this. You totally got this. Telling a guy you got this is like music to their ears. They want somebody to remind them, yeah, you can do this. You can do this. They want that encouragement. You got this, you can handle this, or I think you're capable of it. Now, to us women, that sounds a little dismissive, doesn't it? Especially what I just said, oh, I think you can handle it. In a way, if you kind of minimize the worry and be like, you can totally handle this. You've done this kind of stuff before. You'll be fine. To us women, that can sound a little dismissive, but to men, it can sound helpful. They're like, oh, she's not really worried about it. Oh, she's kind of blowing it off. Yeah, I guess I must really be capable of doing it because she's not even worried. Oh, okay. But if you do the opposite and you're like, oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah, that is kind of a big marathon. Yeah, well, I mean, you did do all that extra, that can actually make him feel worse, because if you sit there and listen and go, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. Well, then he's going to take that as, oh my gosh, maybe I really can't pull it off. Look at how worried she's getting, And so that's why with men, you don't want to really freak out about the problem, Just express belief in their capability, and their competence and their ability to get it handled. Don't sit there and psych out about it and go, oh, you're right, that actually is a big problem. I don't know, man, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little worried too. That's the absolute worst thing you want to say, But again, yeah, just telling things like, you got this, blah, blah, blah. However, on the other hand, if he has failed, let's say he got fired from his job, or, he did the sales call and he didn't get the sale, failure it's not looming on the horizon. It actually has happened, you know, like he's not just psyching out about, you know, something in the future. Like it actually has happened. In that case, you want to kind of, again, minimize the problem by pointing out how common it is. You know, like, you know, honestly, it happens to the best of us. Think of a famous salesperson. I think Zig Ziglar was like the super famous salesperson, and you can just tell him like, well, you know, even he lost some sales calls, you know, or, you know, like what, you know, maybe he got fired from his job. Think of famous people who, you know, got fired from their job. Tim Ferriss got fired from his job. One of his first jobs he ever had, he got fired from it. And he's an amazing, like, millionaire now, and he's gone on to be very successful, you know? So, yeah. So point out, like, well, you know, many successful people got fired. Like, this does not reflect on your abilities. Like, they didn't understand your capabilities. They didn't appreciate you. And, like, now you're freed up to go somewhere for people who will really, really understand and appreciate what you bring to the table. It's things like that, you know, you want to make it out like, well, they fired you, like they don't know what they're doing. That was really stupid of them to do that. Or, oh, you didn't close the sales call. Well, I don't know what that prospect was thinking. Like, they're going to regret it. You're showing belief. It's kind of like loyalty, you know, like you want to be loyal to him and just be like, well, those people that did that bad thing, like they're dumb. I don't know what possessed them to do that. You're obviously really qualified, blah, blah, blah. Now, you have to be sincere about it. You know, if deep down you don't really think he was qualified to work that job, then don't sit there and go, well, you obviously were qualified, because you're lying. But you can say, well, this frees you up to work somewhere that is a better fit, and that, you know, the skills you bring to the table will be appreciated. Because let's be real, maybe he didn't have the skills for that job, but he does bring some skills to the table, so he can now go somewhere else where those other skills will be appreciated, you know? So like, you're not technically lying. So again, you know, you want to emphasize that you're still a great man. Great men have failed, and so it's not an indictment on you. You know, like that's the underlying message you want to send, you know, when you're trying to give like that effective sympathy. Like it's called feminine sympathy, but I kind of call it effective sympathy, because in my point of view, when I'm sympathizing with someone, my goal is for them to feel better about themselves or feel better about what happened. And yeah, with men, this is the way, you know. And if you listen to how men console each other in a situation, they'll be like, let's say, you know, it's a sports game and this guy, like, he threw the football and he didn't make the touchdown or whatever, or, you know, it just, and he's like, you know, man, that, like, dude, that ref call was whack. Like, don't even worry about it. It was stupid. You know, like they'll blame something else in the environment. And yeah, it's kind of a way of deflecting, you know, like, well, look, dude, that would have happened to anybody. Like, we were playing for like overtime, like 20 minutes, like everybody was tired, you know? So again, that's kind of how that works. Anyways, that's how to give sympathy to a man in such a way that he doesn't feel, you know, kind of mothered. You know, you don't want to treat him like this helpless little boy, like, oh my gosh, something bad happened to you, oh, you know, like, that's treating him like he's a little kid. Just be like, you know, you got this. Like, who cares if that happened? Like, you're gonna do so much better next time. Like, who cares? It's a learning experience, you know, like, I know you can do it. Like, whatever, that was a fluke. You know, like, you kind of have to show that loyalty and that unshakable belief in his competence. You know, you have to believe that he's capable. And again, if you're dating a guy and he keeps running into these like failure situations and you're having a hard time, you know, being loyal and believing in him, maybe you're with the wrong guy. Maybe he really is, you know, maybe he's got some learning and growing up to do, and maybe it's not time for him to have a girlfriend or a woman in his life. You gotta kind of back off and let him figure out life on his own terms by himself. Maybe he's not mature enough, you know? So that's also kind of a little sidebar there. Something to keep in mind if you're like, look, I'm trying to be sympathetic, but like he just keeps hitting the wall. Well, you know, maybe he's not ready for a girlfriend. Maybe he's got to develop his life a little bit more, and men got to do that on their own. That is not something that a woman can do for a man. They got to kind of figure it out on their own. But anyways, so yeah, that's a section on sympathy. I hope that was helpful.